Hey everyone, and welcome to. It is a sidebar, admittedly. You'll notice in the title it's not referenced as sidebar. I'm thinking of just like getting rid of that. We do Album Fight Club, we do the normal things we normally do. If it's anything other than that, it's of the nature of sidebar, right? It's Mike talking about something, it's Cody talking about something, it's whatever. So, yes, technically this is a sidebar, a Mike sidebar, but honestly, what's the point of calling it that? But what this actually is returning to Mike's vinyl collection, which if you're familiar, he did that whole series. I don't know why I'm talking in third person of going through my entire collection of vinyl records by genre. I mentioned in the end of the last episode of that series that one of the future things I might do is like vinyl updates. If I continue to buy records, which we can probably assume I'm going to continue to buy records. Past that, I will do an update video saying, hey, here's the records I've gotten since the last one. As it turns out, I feel like I have enough records since the last one to talk about them. It's not the biggest stack in the world, but it is a stack, and I do like talking about music, so I figured, why not talk about music? And so that's what I'm going to do. So this is records I have gotten since the last miscellaneous vinyl video, and then the next one will be since this video's release, so on, so forth. Really, all this is just me talking more music. I don't think anyone really cares at the end of the day what records I get in my collection, but you may be a fan of some of these albums. It's an opportunity for me to talk about them. There's a chance we'll never talk about some of these records on Album Fight Club proper. So this is me getting my thoughts out there about these records, and it's a way to show them off and do what I've been doing. So why don't we just get right to it? There is no specified genre here. It's a huge amalgamation of different genres. So I'm just going to be talking about in real no genre order, no subsequent order, just through and through. The first two I want to show off are actually records that don't have their original sleeves. You'll see I have it in a vinyl inner sleeve, and that is because a local record store of mine have this massive collection of used vinyl. But sometimes they get vinyl without the original, packaging, as it were, and so they have to just like put it in a sleeve like this. But they still want to sell the vinyl because it's in pretty good condition. So while you can't exactly see it, this is actually Megadeth's So Far, So Good, So What? And if you're a fan of Megadeth and vinyl, you know this one's pretty difficult to find. It's more common to see something like Rust in Peace or later records in their career. So to find a good quality version of this for like relatively cheap, it's a pretty good find. Now, it's relatively cheap because it didn't come with the packaging, but I mean, I just kind of wanted to have it. Not having the packaging wasn't a takeaway, like a bad takeaway for me. I love this record. I don't love it as much as Rust in Peace and Peace Sells But Who's Buying, but I do like it a lot. It's got some killer songs on it. Into the Lungs of Hell, Set the World Afire. It does have a cover of Anarchy in the UK. Excuse me, I don't know why I stumbled there. We know how I feel about covers, and in particular, it's not a very good cover in my opinion. It's just like whatever. It's funny, Megadeth never really did great covers in my opinion. I think Metallica did, Slayer did, but you know, Megadeth, they kind of just should have stuck to the studio material, which thankfully they do most of the time. Just reminding myself, In My Darkest Hour is such a good Megadeth song, one of their best actually, and I'm surprised that it doesn't get more love because I think it's so good. And then Hook and Mouth as a closer, such a good closer. So yeah, it's kind of weird to just show off a vinyl record and like you see the middle pattern, but nothing else really more to it, and that's because I don't have the packaging. But beyond that, I'm happy to own it because, like I said, it's not the easiest one to find. Another one that was like that, where it didn't have its packaging, but I couldn't really pass it up, was Rush's first album. This one's not as difficult to find. You can generally find this one, but it was very cheap given that it didn't have the packaging, so I jumped on it. If you don't know Rush very well, their first album actually did not have Neil Peart on it, who would become the very famous drummer and often lyricist of Rush. It still sounds like Rush, though, not as, what Rush would become, and it's definitely not one of my favorite Rush records, but it's got some good songs on it. Of course, the main headliner of this is the last track, which is Working Man. I would say Working Man kind of catapulted Rush into fame and fortune, and then they just went on to do much better stuff. Yeah, it's a good record. It's not, like I said, it's not one of my favorites, but I do have it, and it's cool to have it because it continues my Rush catalog that I would love to have every record for Rush for. And maybe one day that will happen, but for now, nice to have it. All right, we're going to go into a bit of a rap-centered block with To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar. You'll recall that if you saw my rap video on my vinyl collection series, you remember or recall that I have Good Kid, Mad City, but I did not have To Pimp a Butterfly or any other Kendrick record in my collection. I'm trying to remedy that, and I am starting to do that by getting To Pimp a Butterfly in said collection. You'll also recall that this is not my favorite Kendrick record. I think it is his best, but it's not my favorite. That still goes to Good Kid, Mad City. I just have a really soft spot for that record. That's not to say, though, that this record isn't amazing. There's a reason it's often cited as like one of the greatest records of the 2010s. I mean, there's so many good songs on here. I mean, King Kunta, These Walls, All Right, You, The Blacker the Berry, How Much a Dollar Cost. But in recent time, in recent months and years, I would actually say that Mortal Man has become my favorite song on this record. It's actually a song I talk about and workshop in one of my classes of English 102, because I think it just says so much. It has such a powerful, unique message to it that I think it's worth talking about. Even if it's in an academic setting, I don't see why we shouldn't be having these conversations. So, very happy to finally own this record. It's part of the collection. The next one's actually a bit of an odd one. It's a Walmart exclusive, and it's Notorious B.I.G., just like a greatest hits comp. But you can clearly tell it's like a Walmart greatest hits comp. Like, it just kind of has that like weird look to it. But to be fair, it is a very good greatest hits comp. I mean, it's got all the ones you want on it. It's got Juicy, Big Papa, Who Shot Ya, Hypnotize, Mo Money, Mo Problems. Like, it's got everything you want on it in terms of like greatest hits. It's just, I mean, I saw it in the record store and I honestly thought it was like a bootleg or something, because you look at this front cover, you're just like, who made that in MS Paint or whatever? But it is really good. And, you know, having a Biggie record, you only got two to choose from. So this kind of solves the problem of getting both records. Maybe one day I will fork out the money to get both, but for now, this kind of like satisfies that quota. So I wasn't mad about it. Now, I know how we feel about Kanye West, and I agree that Kanye West is not one of the greatest dudes ever. Like, he's kind of a dickhead, but I'm sorry. I'm a firm believer in separating the art from the artist, and his early work, like, you can't deny it's great. I'm like, it really sucks he became what he became, because you listen to those early records and it's like, he is such a talent, dude. I got this one because it was available. I really want College Dropout. I really want Dark Fantasy. This is actually the only Kanye vinyl I own, unless you count Kids See Ghosts, which Kanye is on. But Late Registration, great classic stuff. I mean, Gold Digger is on this. Touch the Sky is amazing. Gone, the last song, I think is incredible. Diamonds from Sierra Leone, We Major, like, so many good songs on here. So for me to take the stance of like, I don't want to get this thing because I don't like Kanye as a person, like, I don't know. I still listen to this record and it still is a great listen. Sometimes I think of who Kanye's become and it makes it less of a great listen, but it doesn't take away or disquantify how good a lot of this material is. Sorry, not sorry. Like I said, I'm a huge defender of separating the arts from the artist, because if we don't, the arts pretty much falls in on itself. You know, that's a whole conversation. I'm not going to get into it. Just to say I'm a firm believer in that. A surprise that I probably haven't had in my collection sooner, but I actually finally got Miles Davis's Kind of Blue, often cited as the greatest jazz record of all time, often considered one you should just have in your collection, whether you're a fan of it or not. I'm inclined to agree. Given that this is often cited as like the greatest jazz record of all time, it's worth having. You can typically find it for somewhat cheap. I just didn't bite the bullet sooner because, I mean, I don't know. There's other records I wanted, but now I have it, and I'm glad that I have it. My favorite Miles Davis is actually In a Silent Way. And Bitches Brew obviously is pretty high up too, but you can't really forego Kind of Blue. It's synonymous, it's essential, it's iconic, it is everything it needs to be. And as part of that, I don't think I could say anything new or exciting that hasn't already been said at this point. So I'm not going to. I just say that I have it. Now we move into a Daft Punk block with Discovery. It's hard to say whether this record or the next one I'm going to show is my favorite. Some days it's this, some days it's the other one. But Daft Punk's Discovery, I mean, talk about a classic 2000s record. Um, you just know these songs. You've heard One More Time. You've heard Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Um, Other songs on here you've probably heard before. You just don't put two and two together. Something like Digital Love and Something About Us, Voyager. So many good songs on here. Such a good record. Such a classic, iconic thing. Um, but EDM as a genre overall, I'm not like a huge fan of. It's pretty much Daft Punk and a couple other artists, and I'll just like leave the rest. Daft Punk, though, is definitely the titans of the genre for me. I might have said it before, but Alive 2007, which if it's on vinyl, it's probably like $200 because I never see it anywhere, is actually my favorite live record of all time. Close second being Decade of Aggression by Slayer. I just love the energy of that record, and you feel like you're in the audience when listening to it. So the holy trinity of Daft Punk for me is Discovery, Alive 2007, and what we unfortunately come to find was their last record, Random Access Memories. This is, like I said, some days my favorite. And it is the record that got me into Daft Punk. And in hindsight, now we know that they broke up. They're not going to make any more music, apparently. Hopefully they... Where I really wanted Slayer to break up, I really want Daft Punk to come back. Slayer coming back, in spite of how much I love Slayer, I think it's really stupid that they're now doing shows again. I think it's really kind of contrived and dumb. I would give a lot to see Daft Punk come back and make another record or do another tour. If they did another tour, forget about it. I'll go anywhere in the United States to go see them. Because, man, I would love to see some of this stuff live. And I would love to see how they could mix it like they did with Alive 2007. You know, take these songs and like meld them together in a way that DJ artists would. It's a weird record, but it's also like a beautifully done record because you get so many different moments on here. Give Life Back to Music, Into Game of Love, Into Giorgio by Marauder. Like those three songs off the top are like so vastly different from each other. And then of course you get the famous song Get Lucky later on, which is like tonal 180 from the record, from the song that came right before that, which is Touch. Might be the most beautiful Daft Punk song ever. Even songs like Doing It Right, which at the end of the day, it's a pretty basic song. It's got like a basic 808 beat and the repetition of doing it right, everybody, blah, blah, blah. I forget the lyrics exactly, but like, it's still great. They managed to make like the simple songs on here still sound amazing. So yeah, it's one of those things where I really wish they would just come back and make another record, because I wish they would come back, make another record, and then do Alive 2037 just to keep up with the 7 theme. I really thought they were going to do Alive 2017, especially since Random Access Memories came out in 2013, if I'm not mistaken. I know I just said 2037. They should do 2027 so they keep up with their theme. Whatever, I can go there, I can freak out, I can pay a lot of money for it and be very happy and content. Will that happen? I don't know. Probably not, unfortunately, but one can dream. Let's talk about the Queen. Barbra Streisand. If you saw the last episode I did with my miscellaneous episodes, I'm a huge Barbra fan now. I wasn't, at least like a year ago, I wasn't even Barbra relevant. But now I'm a huge fan. This is her first greatest hits record. So when I say first, she's put out like 6 greatest hits records at this point, but this is the first one. So therefore it's like all of her very early work. I mean, a third of the songs here are from Funny Girl, which is the show that sort of made her famous. But man, is it good, because you've got fantastic songs on here. I mean, Don't Rain on My Parade, People, My Man, Happy Days Are Here Again. Like, it's a great collection of some of her best stuff. So found it for very cheap at the record store I mentioned earlier, so why would I not pick it up? And the best part is it sounds really good. It's still a very good condition, so love it. We're not done talking about her, because then right next to it, I saw her Broadway album, which, if you don't know, is her taking on a bunch of Broadway songs. This is more in the middle era of her career, so still sounds amazing. I mean, she still sounds amazing today, surprisingly. She's in like her 80s, and she still sounds great. But this is like, at this point, she's a huge mega star. Everybody pretty much knows her. She's on top of the world. And she decides to do an album of Broadway hits. And what's funny is if you listen to this album, the first song, she's parodying the fact that like her producers were like, do not do a Broadway album. It will not make money. You will not make anything off of it. We need you to make hits. Don't do any more of those cockamamie songs. Just do big radio hits because that's what sells. And Barbara, being the amazing woman that she is, went, no, not going to do that. I'm going to do my own thing. And she does a bunch of Broadway songs. She does them very well. There's a lot of Sondheim love on this album. She admits that she is a very big fan of Sondheim, but like, I would say half the songs are Sondheim. So, not that that's a bad thing. I mean, she has an amazing covers of Somewhere. Probably my favorite piece off this whole thing. Being Alive, that cover's really great. Send in the Clowns is great. It's a great record. And it's interesting that she went that direction when she, at that point, had not done a stage show in years for various reasons I'm not going to get into, but she still had admiration and love for it. So she decided to do a whole album based around stuff like that. Cody and I, did an album Fight Club on this artist recently, and that is, of course, Heart with Dreamboat Annie. Also found this for relatively cheap at the record store I mentioned. In fact, if you can see the sticker, probably not, it's right up here. It is $8. And when you see a record like Dreamboat Annie and you don't have it and it's $8, you go, sure, I'll get it because I like Heart a lot. I love this record a lot. If you listen to the Album Fight Club episode, both Cody and I think this record is amazing. Why not get it? The problem with that sometimes is that when you do get it, you put the record on the turntable and then you realize it's scratched to hell. And so you can listen to like half a song because the other half is skipping and it's scratching and it doesn't sound good and it's unfortunate. But sometimes when you're going through used vinyl, that's just kind of the game you have to play. Sometimes you'll luck out. The two Barbra records I just mentioned are like great, fantastic quality. And I got both of those for like $15 together, right? Good deal. If this record were $8 and sounded amazing, it'd be a complete steal, like hand to mouth steal. Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's just $8 and the packaging's in decent condition, but the record itself is not. So waste of money, maybe, but that's just, again, what you have to play sometimes. It's unfortunate, but that's the nature of the beast. So am I disappointed? A little bit, but I'm not going to like try and get a refund off of it. I paid $8, right? Most vinyl you pay for nowadays, you got to pay like 30 at least. So it is what it is. With that being said, though, love Dreamboat Annie. Listen to our Album Fight Club episode if you want us to go on for much, much longer, but it's very good. Iron Butterfly, In-Da-Gadda-Da-Vida. So strange record. I don't know how else to say it. If you know In-Da-Gadda-Da-Vida, you know that it's like a mega massive song. It's 17 minutes in length. It is very much of the psychedelic drug-infused era. But I also love the hell out of it. I love In-Da-Gadda-Da-Vida. In fact, the drumming of the song, even though it's 17 minutes long and it's got a very great drum solo, it's actually one of my favorite drum songs to play when I play drums, which, to be fair, is very rare these days. But that's just side 2 of the record. You got a whole side 1 that has 5 pretty good songs on it. I'm not going to say they're the greatest songs ever, but like some of these songs are pretty good. Like Termination. I love Termination. I think that's a really cool song. Of course, the staple, the reason you go to this record is In-Da-Gadda-Da-Vida. But yeah, Iron Butterfly kind of did this, and I don't know if they made more music after this, but you don't really hear about anything other than this. And even then, you don't really hear about Iron Butterfly anymore. It's too bad, because I think In-Da-Gadda-Da-Vida in particular is pretty cool. Another band we have talked extensively about on an Album Fight Club episode is Deep Purple, and this particular record, In Rock, was going up against Machine Head. I already have Machine Head in my collection. I'm very happy to say that now I have In Rock as well. This is my favorite Deep Purple record. Both sides kind of look exactly the same, other than the fact that the track list is up here on the backside. Yeah, this is my favorite Deep Purple record. Now, it is of the era of Mach 2, same as Machine Head. So, like, this lineup of these dudes here, one of the best lineup of musicians ever. Machine Head's very good. It's got Smoke on the Water, it's got Highway Star, it's got Space Truckin', amazing songs. But together, as a total package, I think In Rock is just their best work. In particular, Child in Time probably still is my favorite Deep Purple song. I just love the hell out of that song. And just Ian Gillan. I've talked a lot about Richie Blackmore and John Lord and all the guys who are in this band, but I think what really sells Deep Purple is Ian Gillan. His vocals are just so goddamn good throughout every Deep Purple record that he was on. But in particular, in rock, just like some of the songs, his performances are insane. And I love it. So, like with Dreamboat Annie, if you want to hear us talk way more about Deep Purple and in rock and in Machine Head, go seek out that Album Fight Club episode. We spend at least an hour talking about it, if not more, from what I remember. This next one's really cool, and all of these have been really cool, but I really like this next one for a particular reason. This is Watershed, and this is their newest album, Blow It Up Before It Breaks. Now, why this is really cool, you may have never heard of Watershed before, and that's fine. They're not a very super well-known, famous band, but they are a band that I think you should listen to. I know this band because in my master's in my undergrad at Coastal Carolina University in the writing English field, there's a guy there named Joe A. Strike. And Joe A. Strike is a professor of nonfiction and English in general. He's actually the bass player and one of the vocalists for this band. Now, going into my undergrad, I didn't really know Joe A. Strike. I didn't know who he was, but someone had mentioned a comment that he was in a band and he was like, he didn't want to talk about it a lot because that's not why we're there. So he was like, yeah, I was in a band. It was called Watershed. They still make music, hence this record that just came out. But he didn't spend a lot of time talking about it. It almost seemed like he didn't want to talk about it when he had the floor to just like open up about being in a band. He was just like, yeah, I'm in a band. I play bass. It's cool. Moving on. When I get to my master's program, which is also at Coastal, I strike up more of a friendship with Joe A. Strike, and eventually he becomes my thesis mentor, I think is the term for it, when I wrote my master's thesis, because it was based in nonfiction. And so he was like, hey, man, you have to read these books. And I was doing cultural criticism at the time, and I'm not going to belabor the point and get way into it, but he gave me a stack of books to read, basically. And on top of the stack, I was like, I really like these books. I really like that it's nonfiction based, but I kind of want to read his nonfiction because I want to see what he does as a writer. And so I picked up Hitless Wonder, which was his MFA thesis. And man, was it good. But it was chronicling his journey as a quote unquote band that made it and then like sort of sunk into obscurity, rocking into obscurity, if you want to say it that way. So read that book, really loved it, and then listened to the entire Watershed discography. And I think these guys are great. I think they deserve way more than they get. And so if this is anything in this video, I would highly recommend listen to this album, listen to the 5th of July, which is actually my favorite Watershed record. This is their most recent. This one came out in 2024, which is the year on which I'm recording this video. And it's fantastic, right? These guys still got it. I don't know how old Joe and the boys are, but they're not young fellas anymore. And I don't think Joe would take offense to me saying that. But they still kick ass, dude. Like this still got some great stuff on it. Another Night in the Ruts in particular, the second song, which I think is the lead single off here. Fantastic. Really great, propulsive, fun rock song. It's good stuff. It's real good. And I just wish more people would listen to it because Watershed is a band that's not Deep Purple, right? They're not icons of rock music. All the artists I just mentioned are way more popular than this band. And it makes sense, right? Watershed knows that they're not the most popular band ever, but these guys deserve to be more well-known than they are. So please go listen to their records. And Joe, if you're listening or watching, please release 5th of July on vinyl. It's my favorite Watershed record. I want it on vinyl and it's nowhere to be found. It's cool that you could put this on vinyl. I'm glad to own it, but please put 5th of July on vinyl. And for everybody else, go listen to Watershed because they kick ass. All right, I got 2 more for you, and then we'll wrap this up. So this record, kind of hard to tell what it is, but it's got a cool little thing going on. This is actually Lateralis by Tool. This is a repressing of the album, because if you want to find original copies of this thing, they're pushing hundreds of dollars. So this repress, it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't hundreds. And I was reading reviews of this repressing, and most of them were kind of negative. They were saying the sound quality's weird, it's not a great pressing, don't buy, etc. And I was like, okay, I'm not a huge audiophile. Like, they're probably just like huge audio heads where they're just like listening to it and it's just a little bit off and they're going to say that it's not good. Whatever. I'm going to get this record anyway. I should have listened because as much as I love this record, and this is my favorite Tool album, this repressing sounds really weird. I don't I don't know if it's compression or just like a bad translation of the album, but like it just doesn't sound great, which is really sad. Because I think it's an amazing record. If there's one Tool album I would recommend to people, it's probably this one. This one has Schism on it, which is, I mean, is that Tool's most famous song? I feel like it's up there. People generally know that song, but so many. The Grudge, probably my favorite Tool song. Love that song. Parable and Parabola are on here. Like, it's great stuff. So don't buy this. I'll be to say it as well. Don't buy this version, this repressing, but do go listen to Lateralis. It's not an easy listen. Tool is not an easy band to consume, but I think they are great. So I do think it is worth your time at least. And finally, wrapping it up with another album that I did not have when I mentioned it, but now I do, would be Periphery 5. Man, what is Gent is not a genre. They always go with the crazy title, so I had to remind myself what it was. So when I did my Periphery ranking, I did not have this. I did not own it. And it was the only Periphery vinyl I don't own, but now I do own it. So now I have a complete Periphery vinyl collection until they release something else. Although I don't have the acoustic singles they just released. So maybe I don't have a complete collection, so sue me. But I do have Periphery 5, and that's great because I've been wanting this record for a while. It's really, really good. I still hold the same opinion that I held during my ranking, which is to say that this is probably in the bottom half, just because I haven't consumed it nearly as much as all the other Periphery records. But like I said, it's still fantastic. It's still great. I mean, the triple threat of Wildfire, Atropos, and Wax Wings, amazing. And then every other song here is great. So even if it's my least, well, not my least favorite, but it's lower in the ranking of my Periphery vinyl, I mean, Periphery's discography, still love it. Still think it's great. So I'm definitely happy to own it and definitely happy that I completed that collection. So yeah, that's what I have since my last vinyl collection episode. As you can see, big smattering of stuff, not a ton of, records. I've had longer episodes, but I just wanted to say, I don't know if these records are ever going to come up on an Album Fight Club episode, so this is me just getting those opinions out there. Lateralis and Enema, though, as a Tool episode for Album Fight Club, I think that could be real good, but you'll just have to wait to see when that transpires. So at some point in the future, I'll probably do another vinyl update with more vinyls I own, but for now, you have my entire collection. It's all on video, so you just got to go seek it out and find it if you are so interested. Either way, if you are or are not, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. You could literally be doing anything else of your time, and maybe you're listening to this while doing something else. I appreciate it. Just listening to me ramble on about records is not the most important thing in the world. So the fact that you would give your time, we appreciate it. Both Cody and I speak for him as well. And thanks for being you, man. Thanks for being who you are. And I'll see you on the next one, maybe. Take care.